Welcome to the office of the Leader of the Opposition press conference for the 21st of December 2023. Today with me, permit me to introduce my panel. To my right, there is none other than Mr. Sherwin Holder, Member of Parliament and Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. To his right, Mr. Elson Lowe, Economist. Today's statement will be read by Mr. Elson Lowe.
Thank you very much, Shanika. Financial stability, financial sustainability is just another PUP excuse to deny public servants a livable wage. Since this year's 6.5% salary increase by the government to public servants, which we have already condemned as a slap in their faces, the government and its defenders have trotted out the excuse of financial sustainability as their new boogeyman for keeping wages low. Having failed to convince anyone with the previous boogeyman of inflation and the Dutch disease, Bar Jagdeo and others now claim that the government cannot sustain meaningful increases in public service pay. Let us debunk this excuse and expose the PUP's bad-mindedness. First, the public service is a net contributor to the economy. It performs a myriad of functions without which the country stands to lose far more than the public service wage bill, from healthcare, education, law and order, national defense, tax administration and collection, provision of water and electricity, design and supervision of infrastructure projects, to natural resources management, to name a few. The public service contributes to the society and economy far in excess of its maintenance cost. It is therefore not a burden on the national treasury, as some falsely and deceptively argue. The public service, additionally, can contribute substantially more through reforms to improve efficiencies and performance. More robust auditing of Exxon, for example, can prevent leakage of vital government revenues. All said, the public service can pay for itself and much more. Secondly, government currently has the fiscal space to pay public servants much more. The 2023 national budget now stands at over 900 billion Ghana dollars. Our revenues will grow with our third FPSO in operation. Our per capita income at purchasing power parity is already one of the highest in the world. How that money is allocated depends on how a government sees its priorities. For the PUP, the emphasis is on infrastructure spending to benefit its cronies. For the next coalition government, our budgeting will put people first and at the center of national development. We see this not only as a moral obligation, but as an economic investment in our human resources. Our budgets, therefore, will reflect this philosophy. Thirdly, the PUP government fails to grasp that public servants as individuals are also consumers, investors, savers, and producers. As such, they contribute to the economy over and above their role as providers of public service. The next coalition government will view public servants in this larger economic frame. Fourthly, the PUP will never understand that public servants are also parents, main breadwinners, and family members. Along with other citizens, they are also one moment there. They are also owners of Guyana's natural endowment and have rights to a decent quality of life. As such, they too must benefit from our vast oil wealth. They must not be treated as second-class citizens. Lastly, we will continue to expose the PUP's attempt to deny paying proper wages by hiding behind financial sustainability. Financial sustainability is far more complex than the PUP would like us to believe. It depends on how a government sets its national priorities, how a government recognizes the net contribution of the public service to the economy, how a government can increase this contribution by comprehensive public service reform, and how a government appreciates that its workers are far more than mere employees. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the floor for questions on the press statement. Mr. Adam Harris.
Good morning, everybody. Now, the Vice President did say that volume of infrastructure precludes the government 5%. And you have to be. No, I don't understand. And the 6.5%, will they fuel inflation by having?
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Harris. As we have previously demonstrated, in the coalition government paid 77% over the course of a few years. You didn't see a spike in inflation, and there's been previous large salary increases before that where you didn't see a large spike in inflation. This is, of course, why they're turning to the sustainability argument. But one of the things that we need to point out here, Mr. Harris, is that it really seems that the government has no proper sense of how to plan for recurring expenses. Now, one thing that goes unnoticed is, of course, Guyana has a sovereign wealth fund, the natural resources fund. And just looking at the interest earned, so this is not even tapping into the oil revenues, just the interest earned, you could add that to what is currently being offered and easily triple the increase that is being offered to public servants. So even without touching oil revenues, even without interrupting this infrastructure program, you could pay public servants 3 times as much as they're offering this particular Christmas. This indicates that the government really has no proper understanding of how to run the country, how to plan, and how to structure a budget for the future.
That brings me to another question. Many, many years ago, we had a prime minister named Ptolemy Reed who said, how do I explain the fact that the government is putting infrastructure?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Harris, for your question. Those within the PNC will know that Prime Minister Dr. Ptolemy Reed is actually my great uncle. So there's a little bit of a connection there. But yes, he did emphasize that people are vital. He also spoke at length and believed very much that we must educate our population, and of course we believe strongly that we must educate our population. But that is, really because we understand that investments must be made in human capital in our people. We understand that our priority must be to improve the lives of Guyanese. And while infrastructure plays an important role in that, it is not the only important thing. We must really recognize that we are in an environment where you've got twice as much or in excess of twice as much production as Trinidad during the boom times. An economy that for multiple years has been the number one, the fastest growing economy in the entire world. The per capita GDP and purchasing power that is higher than the United Kingdom. If, as we said before, if they're not going to pay public servants a decent wage now, they're never going to pay public servants a decent wage. If they're not going to be providing or focusing on poverty eradication now, they're never going to be focusing on poverty eradication. If they're not going to be focusing on education and ensuring that our population is properly trained to meet the needs of the future, they're never going to be focused on that. It is a question of priorities, and the government's priorities are very poor. They still seem not to understand, and this is, of course, brought out in their not understanding the way that the Natural Resources Fund works. They seem not to understand that the country has the second most barrels of oil per person in the entire world. Now, if you look out over the course of the oil industry, our Natural Resources Fund will generate enough interest, so we won't have to draw down on the fund over the longer term, generate enough interest to finance wide sectors of entire government budgets. So really, if you understand the way that the Natural Resources Fund works, if you understand the oil industry over a long period of time, you can budget accordingly. They seem not to grasp even the most basic concepts, things like interest revenue, and that to me is very disturbing.
Adam, if I can add, other than the incompetence currently being demonstrated, you would know that infrastructure, these huge investments in infrastructure allows for corruption. It allows for corruption, and so they see it as a way of garnering funds under the table through backdoor deals, etc. And so that is why they would pursue these large infrastructure funds instead of focusing some of those funds on the people itself. Look, our vision as a coalition is one that is people-centered. We believe that there is no reason why people should be poor in this country, Adam. We only have about 750,000, even 800,000 people. Lots of resources coming in from oil. Even the non-oil sector over the last few years have grown significantly due to this newfound wealth in the form of oil. And so there is no reason why any Guyanese should be poor in this country. We promise as a coalition, when we form the next coalition government, there are some specific things that we will aim for, and specifically in the area of public service, we promise to give the kinds of increases that will see our public servants living a comfortable life. Not the 6.5%. You know, Jagdeo is so shameless in his explanations. The coalition, when we came to power in 2015, Adam, we gave straight off the bat, I believe it was a 26% increase to the lowest level workers, 26%. And we came down with some other percentages as the salary scale went up. At that point, when we got to the next budget, after giving that 26%, no lesser than Barra Jagdeo stood up in the parliament and advocated for 50%. He said the unions should bargain for 50%. You can go and check the record. And consistently over those years, we gave huge salary increases. Elson mentioned it that we, cumulatively, we gave about 77% increase. But the PPP came back to power, and they went back to the normal trend. You would recall prior to 2015, it was a 3%, a 4%, even 2%. But when you come to election time, they give you a 5%. We anticipate that come 2025 or whenever the elections are called, they will look to up it a notch as an election gimmick. But public servants should take note of what they're doing right now and how they're treating with the public servants. Inflation, I think the inflation rate is 6.6%. And you're given a 6.5%, which is lower than the inflation rate. Basic food items have risen, the cost for oil, regular food stuff, milk, flour, 3 times over as much as 3 times over, some of them in the last 3 years. And they are now coming to give a 6.5% after drawing down millions upon millions. Just recently we were at the parliament to approve another $26 billion. You know, it really upsets me and upsets us as a government in waiting when we look at how they're treating our public servants. We have to do better. We must do better. We can do better. And as a coalition, this is our contract with this country that we are going to give larger salary increases. We will have a people-centered approach when dealing with these matters.
I see the hand of Ms. Renee. Could you state your full name and your media house?
I'm Mr. Harris. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning.
With this summit with Kaiser News.
Okay.
My question is for Mr. Holder. You mentioned that the resources and no one should be poor. Everyone should be able to live a comfortable life, and that the coalition will ensure that the next coalition government will ensure that citizens live a comfortable life. How will the coalition ensure that citizens live a comfortable life and benefit from the oil resources, given the deal that the coalition signed with ExxonMobil?
Thanks for your question. Look, I want to say it clearly. Before oil, we took government in 2015, before there was any oil, and we did better. I just mentioned to you the salary increases that we were able to give to our public servants without oil. I understand where you're coming from in terms of the oil contract, but from that same oil contract, we are benefiting tremendously at this point. We have huge sums that are already coming in, which will afford us to be able to give to the Guyanese people a livable wage, to afford things like free university, to give salary top-ups. The coalition has long said that we will give salary top-ups to the low-income bracket, low-income workers. We will remove taxes, income tax. We don't believe that the lower bracket should be taxed. We will remove income tax from the low-level workers. We are going to train tens of thousands of Guyanese through the TVET and other skill training programs. We are advocating for the removal of electricity tariffs and water tariffs, and a whole host of other things that can be done, even in the confines of this oil contract and the state of the economy, the state that we are in at this point in time. So again, there is no excuse which can be preferred for us still being poor in this country. No excuse. In relation to the oil contract specifically, we have long said and we continue to say that once we get government, there are provisions in the contract which would allow the government and the oil companies to sit and to work out the maximum benefits that we can achieve, that we can gain from the existing arrangements. We've long said that, and again today I am committing that when we take government, we are going to do that.
Consider ring fencing?
Can you repeat? I got something about ring fencing.
Yes. You said if the coalition go back into government, they will go to the table with Exxon to negotiate. Will ring fencing be one of those things?
Thank you very much for your question. As we said, we will speak with the operator within, I think we said the first 100 days, but the leader of the opposition has said as soon as we are ready to do so, so it could be sooner than that. What we have said is that there is a range of options that we will speak to the operator regarding. We have spoken to the operator already when we met with them to get a sense of what are their thoughts on different options, and we will speak regarding those options. Now, ring fencing is one of those options. However, we will evaluate closely how we approach each option because there are different economic dynamics that we need to make sure are properly accounted for. So we believe, and we have already started, that we will engage in that conversation. However, we will be doing so from an informed position and having worked along with the appropriate expertise to produce the best for the country. We're not just going to go and say this must be done and that must be done, but rather we are going to seek the appropriate expertise, seek the appropriate advice, and then have that conversation. And from that perspective, from that, with that in mind, we'll be able to secure the best for Guyana.
Thank you.
Yep, look, Elsa is correct. We have to deal with this from an informed position. When we met with Exxon a few months ago, we discussed, that was discussed among many other issues. There are advantages to ring fencing and disadvantages to ring fencing. And so we have to weigh those. You'll recall in the parliament just a few sessions back, we would have put forward our suggestion that new projects be ring fenced, and then you bring the existing ones, you give them a timeline up to 2030, I believe we were proposing at that stage, to bring in the others in line. But that was just a proposal. It was put down in Parliament. It was, we were outvoted in Parliament. So it is an issue that we are conscious of. But as I said, our key focus doesn't lie in ring fencing or the other measures. Our key focus is to get the maximum benefit from our resources and allow it to meet the people. And so that will be our focus. We'll have to look at it in a holistic manner. And as I said, and as Elsa indicated, we'll have to weigh the pros and cons with it before we move forward. So we won't want to make a definitive statement to say, well, ring fencing will be in this discussion or not. We look at it holistically.
I just want to make a last point on this particular note. We have previously indicated, because one of the concerns around ring fencing is how you can raise revenues earlier. We previously indicated that, and this is also something that we raised with the operator, is our policy or our position that we need to evaluate the pace at which new developments come on stream to ensure that we're able to prepare the country, whether it is in terms of auditing capacity, whether it is in terms of personnel, to be able to properly deal with the additional developments. And so, the pace at which we introduce new developments will also allow us to raise revenues and to raise the income stream that we're getting in this country at a higher level earlier. So those are all aspects of the analysis that we will undertake. But the key of it is that we have indicated that we will speak to the operator. We've already spoken to the operator. We will seek appropriate advice, and when the time comes, once in office, we will ensure that Guyana gets the best going forward.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Adam Harris.
Public service is a net contributor to the economy. How do you justify them? The volume of money given to Gaisuku, what is given to the public servants?
I completely understand where you're coming from here, Mr. Harris. The first thing that we want to highlight is that it is deeply ironic to the PPP to be operating as if the public service is not contributing to Guyana, when there are public servants whose jobs are vital to the function of the very oil economy that the PPP is relying on for all of its spending. And so I do not understand how you can see the public service as just this expense that's something you just have to pay and not really contributing. When it is public servants, the Ministry of Natural Resources at minimum, but across the Guyana, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to security, when it comes to national defense, for all contributing to that very oil industry. That to me indicates the PPP has a totally wrong-headed understanding of the public service and of Guyana's economy more broadly. On the other hand, we again would note our distress that Gaisuko is not being run properly by the PUP, that the targets for production are far below the targets that the coalition set, and the amounts the coalition was able to produce, I believe as much as a third, 33% or so, less than the coalition had indicated that Gaisuko should produce. So that industry continues to be in a dire state. And despite the PUP putting money there, they have not spent that money efficiently or effectively. And so sugar workers are again in a position, by the PUP as they were last year when you saw production fall to the lowest, some of the lowest ever levels, in a position where they have to be really worried about the direction of the industry. We believe that the industry must be reviewed and that we have to look at ways to ensure that workers are able to earn a good wage, but also so that the industry is sustainable. And so what is happening is that the PUP has not been using the money effectively whatsoever, and so they've been presiding over a decline in the sugar industry, while all the time trying to blame the coalition, even though the coalition's performance record is far superior to theirs.
You know, on the question of Gaisuko, Adam, I'm happy that you raised it. You know, look, the PPP is so barefaced. They're so disrespectful to the people of this country. I want to put it very bluntly. We agree that the people, the workers of Gaisuko, and the people in the surrounding environment, the families, the sugar belt, they too deserve a better life, better wages, livable wages, better all-round living standards. But that being said, the performance of Gaisuko is a disaster under the People's Progressive Party. The coalition, when the coalition sought to right-size the industry, and I believe we had three factories operating, we produced about 90,000 tons. 2019, go back and check the record. Barra Jagdi and others criticized us. They criticized us, they chastised us, they went around all across this country to say how we're failing and look at the production is now at new lows and all these different things. 90,000 tons. Check their track record from 2020 to 2023. They can't meet even reduced production targets. They can't meet what they do. They spread their propaganda when they achieve a weekly target every now and then, every few months, and they accomplish a target, a weekly target. They put it up in the newspapers. As we understand it now, they are reaping, or they would have reaped, canes that should have been in 2024 production. They are reaping it, young canes, to try and fool this nation that they are achieving that 60,000 tons target for 2023. We know that in the forest crop, they just made about 15,000 tons, I believe, Elson, about 15,000 tons in the forest crop. And so now they're trying to use those sugarcane, which should be harvested in 2024. They're harvesting it in 2023 to try and make up the tonnage and fool the nation to justify the amount of money is being pumped into that industry. And it's so ironic. It's so ironic that you can pump so much money by the billions into a dead industry. But on the other hand, you can't give the public servant a 25% increase in their wages and salaries. It's just disgusting and dishonesty coming from the People's Progressive Party. And I hope that the people of this country, our public servants specifically, are watching closely at what they are doing. Because the fact remains that they've always treated our public servants with disdain, and they continue to do it, and we know the reason why. The public service is perceived to be supporters of the coalition, and that is the bottom line. I put it bluntly, that is the bottom line. That is why they're being treated in this fashion.
Thank you. I see the hand of Ms. Rennie.
Just to follow up, I'd like to clarify. You mentioned massive benefits, and the coalition will ensure that the next coalition government will ensure that the citizens of Guyana benefit. The vice president recently admitted that Guyana. Like to know is if next coalition government will go after a fencing provision in relation to the stop clock.
I think we answered that question already. Look, I said before that we have to look at the pros and cons. The reality is that the oil industry in Guyana has grown very, very quickly. I think it's one of the fastest to develop in the world. And that is due to some of the provisions there. And we are benefiting from rapid increase in production. We are benefiting. There are a lot of spin-offs to that. So going forward in this industry, we have to take an informed position. We have to be so advised. We have to look at all the pros and cons when we sit with that company to determine what exactly we're going to do, whether we're going to ring fence these sets of projects. Whatever is the approach, it has to be an informed one, and we have to look at everything holistically. By the end of the day, we would be seeking maximum benefit for our people, and I think that is what matters.
Adam Harris.
And City Hall, and Mr. Mike Paul can help me here. The cash crop and couldn't pay the increases and bonus of the workers. Pay. Can help is the government indebted to City Hall.
Mr. Michael is not on this panel today, so please bear that in mind. But
Yes.
I'm sure that one of the members here will answer.
I guess we can.
Yeah, go ahead, Edson. Go ahead, Edson.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Adam, we know for a long period of time that City Hall has been owed monies, taxes by the government. That has been a long-standing bone of contention. But Adam, we as a country must recognize the government is spending this year in excess of $900 billion. You mean to tell me that they still can't afford to pay City Hall? When will they be able to afford to pay City Hall? The national budget in only a few years has tripled, and they still can't afford to pay City Hall. What I should say is the truth, which is that they don't intend to pay City Hall. Therefore, they're deliberately ensuring that the City Council does not have the appropriate funds to carry out all of its duties to ensure that our city, Georgetown, is able to be capital that we can all look forward to as being one of the most beautiful in the region. It is a city that is beautiful in its own right, but the government is deliberately undermining the city. And so, really, I think it is deeply ironic that the government can spend that much, come back from multiple supplemental budgets, and can't remember to pay City Hall in that process.
You know, Adam, this is a core strategy by the People's Progressive Party. If we go down the road of history, they've always treated City Hall in a particular way, and there's no secret about it. It is the PNC stronghold, our base, and so this is what they will do. But outside of it being our base, this has long been their approach to local government and local governance and local democracy. Why? They don't believe in it. When we came to power, We increase subvention immediately without oil money again. Adam, I'm saying this thing to say to the public, to say to the media, that we can govern this country way better than the People's Progressive Party, and for everybody. Every NDC, we gave them the resources, and we didn't direct them what to do with those resources. The PPP has come back to power, and we see a total reversal with respect to local democracy. We see what they are doing to Georgetown. And look, this was telegraphed to us, you know. Recall that, I believe it was Minister Edgil, who, while you were campaigning, said, or one of the other ministers, I'm almost certain that it's Edgil, said, vote for us and we will do X, Y, Z. So only if you vote for People's Progressive Party, only if Georgetown supports the People's Progressive Party, then and only then, they will make available the kinds of resources and do the kind of development that any capital city would deserve. It's very, very unfortunate, and we will change that. We have much more resources now, and so a new coalition government, again, I'm making this social contract with the people now, with the people of Georgetown and the people of this country. We are going to make available the necessary resources to transform Georgetown into one of the best cities in this part of the world. We are going to do it. That is our commitment.
Thank you. Any other questions as we...
Yeah, perhaps we can talk a bit about ask you if you have a reaction to the summons served on Rickford Bork.
Look, I saw it just, I think this morning. I saw it. I didn't get to go through the details of it. I want to say very clearly that Rickford Bork is not a member of the People's National Congress Reform. He has an organization overseas, and he does what he does. There are times when he criticizes the PPP for their incompetence, for their discrimination, a whole host of other things. And there are other times when he criticizes the opposition. But somehow, because of his criticism of the government of the day, they decided that they have to target him. On every press conference, or almost every press conference, his name is being mentioned by Barra Jagdeo. For what reason, only God knows. But that is the way of the People's Progressive Party. They target you. There is no freedom of expression. There's no freedom in this country. Once you criticize them, you will be victimized. Even if you are 1,000 miles away, they can reach you. And this is proof and evidence of that. As a responsible government, you have to be able to take criticism. It makes you better. You have to look at yourself when you are being criticized. Even if you believe that the people talking nonsense, you gotta consider what they're saying. And in your quiet time, look back at your actions. But that is not the approach of the People's Progressive Party. In the past, we know what happened with Waddle, who was always on the TV criticizing them. We know what happened to Crummy Wing, who frequently was with a bullhorn in front of the AG office and other areas around the country. That is the way. We know what happened to the Kaichor News reporters. Only last night I was talking with someone, a reporter over that. And so this is how they operate. They went to Parliament just recently and passed a law to facilitate these kinds of action. We knew that they came with the legislation under the guise that they're bringing it up to the level of other Caribbean countries, etc. But we knew the underlying issue. We understand what they're attempting to do here. They want to reach across into other countries and to silence those people that are speaking out, those Guyanese that are overseas, that are dissatisfied with the level of discrimination, dissatisfied with how they're treating certain sections of society. And so we're not surprised, but we must condemn it. At this point in time, I want to put on record that we're condemning this kind of action from this government. There's increased, this is another indication of how, of the creeping dictatorial behavior of this government. We have to stamp that out. You would recall last year, I would say, I don't think there was a single incident of this kind of nature from 2015 to 2020. None whatsoever. People could have criticized us. People to the extent that a minister vehicle was almost turned over, to the extent that people had the police running, because in a country governed by the coalition, the laws prevail, and we're a government, we're a party with a core belief that there must be freedom of expression. It's a critical pillar to any democracy.
Thank you. I take one other question before we close, if there is any other. There being no other questions coming, I would like to thank our media houses and media personnel for joining today's press conference. Today is our last press conference before Christmas, so I want to wish you all and our viewing audience, season greetings. We hope, despite all that is happening, that you do enjoy this season with your family, and ensure that you remember the reason for the season and have a wonderful time with your family this weekend heading into Monday. Do have a wonderful afternoon.